Kurt Bardella on this. Kurt, it is great to see you again. And I want to get your reaction to Biden speaking at his first rally in Raleigh since the debate. Let's take another quick listen to another snippet from that.
I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth.
Kurt, what is going through your mind as you are watching these remarks today after that performance we saw last night?
I think you're seeing the difference between having an audience and not having an audience, that the energy and the dynamic completely changes when you have hundreds, thousands of people sitting there that you're really performing in front of versus, basically an empty arena with, a handful of people there, some lecterns, and it's a very stale environment. It's a very low energy environment. And I think that's a big part of the difference. Go ask any performer of any kind, especially in music, is it different playing in front of a live audience or different playing alone in your studio? And they'll tell you there's a big difference. Is
it just the crowd or did the teleprompter help too?
I don't think it's as much about the prompter as it is just about the crowd. There's no substitute for live energy. As someone who goes to live music concert probably every week, there is nothing like that rush, that high, that energy and that symbiosis that you feel with an audience when you are connecting with them. And I think that's also, by the way, true for Donald Trump. I think the version of Donald Trump we saw last night is also very different because there wasn't that live audience he's used to having at his rallies that really kind of amp him up and raise and elevate performances to a whole different level. It's not unlike, frankly, professional wrestling, where you have this live audience that entices the performers to crank up the personality to 50. When you don't have that, what we saw last night is kind of byproduct.
Yeah, Kurt, first of all, I want to hang out with you. Your social life sounds way more interesting than mine. But second of all, it was Biden's team that pushed for there not to be a crowd there. They were afraid that Trump was going to feed off of the environment like he often does. Did they shoot themselves in the foot with that?
Yeah, I think that's when you're operating from a position of fear rather than a position of strength. I think that if you do everything that you're supposed to do, and if you are prepared, you don't let things like the rules and the guidelines hold you back. You don't ever hold your guy back. And I think that's what the Biden team kind of accidentally ended up doing with the rules that they had, because they really ended up benefiting Donald Trump, as we saw last night.
And I know you just wrote a column in the LA Times. I wanted to ask you about this, titled "Joe Biden has always put duty to country first. Will he do it again now?" Break down your thoughts on this.
Democrats have been saying for a while, really ever since January 6th, that this coming election is the most important election in our lifetime, that democracy itself is hanging on by a thread. If we are to accept that premise, and I certainly do believe that personally, but if that's the case, then we have an obligation to put forward our best, most competitive ticket possible. I don't know how anyone realistically can watch what we saw last night and think to themselves, this is the best that we can do. If everything is on the line, which is our contention, which is our premise as Democrats, your right to choose is on the line. Your right to democracy and participate in our democratic process is on the line. Your right to freedom is on the line. Then we have to put up the most competitive ticket possible, the best performers possible. That's not what we have right now. We need to make that change. And President Biden is someone who has lived a life of public service, who has devoted his entire adult life to the betterment of this country, to the values of this country. I believe that he is a man of integrity, character, decency. And I think that this is a time where sacrifice is once again called upon for him to do the hard thing, to take himself, look at himself realistically, and make the tough decision to walk away. It's like athletes have the hardest thing to do, right? When they're at the end of the career, when is the time to walk away and retire? That's kind of what we're seeing right now. You don't want to be that athlete that hung on a little too long and leaves us with that last image of, God, I wish they had hung it up a little bit earlier.
I understand. So I completely hear what you're saying there. So who do you think could win against Trump? Who should replace Biden on the ticket?
I think that the Democrats have an incredibly deep bench right now. When you look at governors like Shapiro in Pennsylvania, when you look at people like Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, when you look even at some senators like Mark Kelly in Arizona, obviously for current Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Wes Moore in Maryland, Gavin Newsom in California. There is a number of younger, dynamic,
Kurt, who would you
and
choose?
Electorally successful.
If you had to choose one right now for a best shot at defeating Trump, who would it be?
Pete Buttigieg. I've been a Pete Buttigieg fan ever. I was there the night that he announced his historic run for the presidency in Indiana. I have never been more impressed with a politician in my life than from Pete Buttigieg.
All right. Kurt Bardella, I always appreciate us speaking with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for taking the time.
All right, coming up still.